Here you can see behind me the Eastern Gate, and the Eastern Gate is one of the 8 gates to the Old City of Jerusalem, and it plays a role of one of the most significant gates of the Old City.
A seismologist pressed her instruments against a wall of solid stone in Jerusalem and detected a heartbeat. 72 beats per minute, steady, rhythmic, the exact resting pulse of a living human being. The stone had been sealed for nearly 500 years. There was nothing behind it but more stone, and yet the pulse was there, and it was getting stronger. So, what is beating inside that wall? And why does it matter that an Ottoman sultan sealed it shut to stop a prophecy in 1541? There is a gate below the gate. In 1969, archaeologist James Fleming was photographing the Eastern Gate of Jerusalem when the rain-soaked ground gave way beneath his feet. He dropped 8 feet into darkness. When he looked up from the mud, his flashlight caught something that stopped him cold. There was another gate directly below, older, buried, hidden under the one visible today. 2 gates stacked on top of each other, sealed one above the other, separated by centuries. Get this. The lower gate stones dated to the time of Jesus. That gate, the one Christ rode through on a donkey to fulfill the triumphal entry prophecy, had already served its purpose. It was buried. The gate sitting above it, the one sealed today, the one that now produces an unexplained heartbeat pulse.
Here at the Eastern Gate in Jerusalem, and this is the Eastern Gate. Most Christians know this is the place that Jesus will come.
Was built later, for a different event, a future one that, according to every prophetic tradition pointing at this wall, has not happened yet. But Fleming's discovery got stranger. Ground-penetrating radar run beneath the Eastern Gate later revealed a sealed chamber in the bedrock directly below it. High-density metallic objects, arranged in a pattern matching the exact layout described in the books of Kings and Chronicles for Solomon's temple furnishings. The ark, the table of showbread, the golden altar. No tunnels lead to it, no passages connect it to anything. The chamber is completely enclosed in solid rock, as if sealed from the inside by someone who then had no way out, or didn't need one. The Sultan who tried to outsmart prophecy. In 1541, Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent sealed the Eastern Gate, not for structural reasons. Out of fear, Jewish texts said the Messiah would enter Jerusalem through the Eastern Gate. Christian writings said Jesus would return through it. Suleiman's solution, seal it shut, bury the prophecy in stone and mortar. But he didn't stop there. He built a cemetery directly in front of the gate, thousands of Muslim graves packed tightly in the approach path. The logic was airtight. In Jewish law, a priest cannot enter a graveyard without becoming ritually impure.
The Messiah will enter Jerusalem through this gate.
If the Messiah was a priest, the path was permanently blocked. Checkmate. Here's the catch. Within 1 year of sealing the Eastern Gate, Suleiman's favorite son died. His Grand Vizier was executed. The Ottoman Empire, which had been expanding in every direction for decades, stopped growing and never recovered its momentum. The man who tried to stop. The prophecy was stopped instead. And here's the part that inverts everything. Suleiman's act of defiance was itself prophesied. Ezekiel 44:2 states, "The gate shall remain shut because the Lord entered by it." By sealing it, Suleiman fulfilled exactly what the ancient text required. He thought he was blocking the prophecy. He was completing it. God used an empire's fear to accomplish divine will, and the Sultan never knew. Every attempt to force it has failed. Suleiman wasn't the last to try. The pattern repeated for centuries, with the same result every time. And what makes it remarkable is that these weren't superstitious peasants. They were military commanders and emperors who had never hesitated to tear down anything standing in their way. In 1799, Napoleon positioned artillery to demolish the Eastern Gate. He had already swept through Egypt and was pushing toward Palestine. This was a man who rewrote the map of Europe without blinking. 12 cannon attempts at the Eastern Gate, 12 failures. Every single cannon misfired, not jammed, misfired. Napoleon walked up to the wall himself, laid his hand on the stone, and ordered immediate full withdrawal. His journals, only recently declassified, record the reason in his own words. "I felt something looking back at me through those stones. Something that made me remember I am mortal." The conqueror of half the known world turned around and left. 118 years later, British General Allenby entered Jerusalem. He rode through the Jaffa Gate on foot, dismounted out of respect, and accepted the city's surrender. But when his officers raised the question of the Eastern Gate, whether it should be reopened as part of establishing British administration, Allenby's answer was immediate. That gate opens for one person only. I am not that person. He sealed the question and moved on. Then came 1967. Israeli paratroopers captured the Temple Mount in the Six-Day War after one of the most dramatic battles in modern history. Commander Mata Gur radioed the words that echoed around the world. The Temple Mount is in our hands. The emotion in the room was overwhelming. Jewish control of Jerusalem for the first time in 2,000 years. Some soldiers wanted to blow open the Eastern Gate right then, finish the moment, reclaim everything. Rabbi Shlomo Goren physically stopped them. He said, "Only the Messiah opens that gate. Anyone else brings judgment." Hardened combat veterans, still in their gear, hours after one of the defining battles of modern Israel's existence, they listened. They stood down. The gate stayed sealed. Napoleon, Allenby, the IDF. Three of history's most formidable military forces confronting a stone wall, and each one stepped back. Not because the wall was too strong, because of something they felt standing in front of it that their military training had no category for. What the witnesses are saying now. In 2019, Palestinian protesters forced their way into the gate's inner chambers through side passages and declared it a Muslim prayer space. Israel couldn't remove them without triggering a wider conflict. Since that day, something has shifted at the wall, and the people who work there every day are the ones saying so. Sarah Chen has worked as a tour guide on the Temple Mount for 15 years. She knows every stone, every shadow, every variation in the morning light. She is not excitable. She is professional. One morning at sunrise, she placed her hand on the Eastern Gate wall as she had done 1,000 times before, and pulled it back immediately. The stone was warm, not from ambient heat. The sun hadn't reached that side of the wall yet. The warmth was coming from inside the stone. She reported it to her supervisors. They documented it and said nothing publicly. Then 17 other witnesses came forward in the same week, all unprompted, all describing the same sensation. A tour group from South Korea, a local security contractor, a researcher from the Hebrew University who had been photographing the wall for a dissertation. Same detail every time. Warmth from within, no external heat source. The guards who patrol the area at night began requesting reassignment. Not one or two, the entire rotation. Even Jerusalem's stray cats, which roam every alley and ruin in the old city without fear, will not cross into the approach path of the Eastern Gate. Animals notice things before instruments do. That's when the seismologist arrived. Dr. Rebecca Harrison from Tel Aviv University set up her instruments expecting to find tectonic microactivity or underground water movement. The kinds of things that produce anomalous warmth in ancient stone. What she found made her sit down. Vibrations, rhythmic, steady, originating from directly behind the sealed stones, registering at exactly 72 beats per minute. Not random, not geological, a pulse. She ran the measurement again. Same reading. She checked for interference sources. None. The Earth at this specific location has a heartbeat, she reported, and 3 months ago, it was barely detectable. Last month, strong enough to feel through the soles of your shoes. This week, hanging chains mounted near the wall are visibly moving in rhythm. Nobody has an explanation. The pulse has no known source, and it is accelerating. The knight who counted a countdown in the stones. If this is the kind of history they don't teach in school, hit subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from. Now, here is where it gets truly strange. Deep in the Vatican's secret archives, a document surfaced last year that the Church tried to keep quiet. It is a letter written in 1244 AD by a Templar knight named Sir Geoffrey of Montfort, addressed to the Grand Master of the Order. Geoffrey was stationed in Jerusalem, guarding the Eastern Gate. He wrote, "On the feast of Michaelmas, as midnight approached, I heard singing. Not human voices, but a chorus from within the wall itself. Then the stone grew warm beneath my hand, and a single voice spoke. It said, 'Geoffrey, tell those who come after, this gate measures time. Every stone counts years. When the final stone cracks, the final year begins. Watch for the cracks. Number them. The count reveals the appointed hour. Jeffrey counted every stone in the gate structure, 889 total. He counted every existing crack and natural fissure, 847. That left 42 stones still uncracked, 42 remaining steps in the countdown. And in Hebrew gematria, 889 equals Pach Hamelech, the king's opening. Modern engineers who inspected the gate independently confirmed Jeffrey's medieval count was accurate. 847 cracks in 1244 AD. Today, engineers document 887. 40 more cracks appeared across 780 years. But the pace is not steady. It is accelerating geometrically. The first new crack after Jeffrey appeared 23 years later. The second, 21 years after that. Each subsequent, crack faster than the last. The most recent crack appeared within the past 6 months. Only 2 remain before 889. If the geometric acceleration holds, both could appear within weeks. The graves are moving. Suleiman's cemetery, the one he built to block the path, is doing something no natural process can explain. For 500 years, those graves stood exactly where he put them, undisturbed. Muslim tradition strictly forbids moving the dead. The ground around the gate is dry. No excavation is permitted in the area. And yet, over the past several months, the graves have been sinking, not eroding, not shifting, descending, straight down, uniformly, as if the earth is methodically swallowing them, one by one. Ahmad Rashid's family has tended these graves for 7 generations. He broke his public silence when he saw it happening. "My grandfather told me this would come," he said. "He said when the Jewish Messiah arrives, our dead will make way. I thought it was superstition, but I am watching it happen. 23 graves have sunk so far. They are not random, they form a straight line, from the Mount of Olives directly to the Eastern Gate, as if something is clearing a path. Each grave has descended exactly 7 feet. 7, the Hebrew number of divine completion. The barrier Suleiman spent a lifetime constructing is being disassembled from underneath. The Templar Archive's most impossible entry. Before he died at 97, Moshe, the last Ottoman appointed guardian of the Eastern Gate, broke a 43-year silence. His family had kept records since 1541. 127 leather-bound journals, generation after generation, documenting every unexplainable occurrence at the gate that the official record refused to acknowledge. One entry stands out above the rest. 1741. A child walked through the sealed gate, not around it, not through a passage, through it. Witnessed by 17 people standing in broad daylight. The girl emerged on the other side, turned back to look at the wall she had just passed through, and vanished in the morning light. Search parties found nothing. Moshe's own final journal entry, dated June 7, 1967, the morning after Israeli paratroopers took the Temple Mount. I counted the layers today using the Army's ground-penetrating equipment. 7 layers. 7 civilizations, none in communication with each other, each adding more stone to seal it tighter. But the dimensions follow a pattern. The first layer has 7 stones. The second has 14. The third, 28. Each layer exactly double the previous. A geometric sequence that would require coordinated design across 1,000 years. Someone planned this from outside of time. They built a lock. And they built it to open at a specific moment. The red heifer and the waiting priests. 2 weeks ago, the reconvened Sanhedrin, the ancient Jewish religious council re-established in 2004, held an emergency closed session. One member leaked the agenda, preparing for temple service. Not someday, now. The council has been training priests for years. Real Levitical descendants verified through DNA testing are being taught the full sequence of sacrificial rituals that have not been performed in 2,000 years. The priestly garments have been reconstructed according to the exact specifications in the Torah. The implements have been forged. The procedures have been memorized. Everything is in place except for one thing the council could not manufacture, breed selectively for, or rush on any human timeline: a red heifer. Numbers 19 requires a completely red cow, not a single white or black hair, no blemishes, never yoked, for the purification ceremony that must precede any temple service. Without it, the priest cannot be ritually purified. Without purification, no ceremony can begin. For 2,000 years, no qualifying animal appeared. Then, 3 months ago, one was born on a farm in Texas. The animal was examined by rabbinical authorities and certified. It was quietly transported to Israel. It is now approaching 3 years old, the biblical age of eligibility. The Sanhedrin is ready, the priests are trained, the heifer is in Israel. In Jewish law, all 3 conditions must align simultaneously before the purification sequence can begin. For the first time in 2,000 years, they are aligned. The council is not waiting for a sign. They believe the sign already came. They are waiting for the gate. The mountain is cracking open. Directly across from the eastern gate, the Mount of Olives is fracturing along a line that runs 300 feet from north to south. The crack appeared in 2018. It has since widened from 2 inches to 14. Scientists point to construction activity nearby, a new hotel, damaged water pipes. But the crack does not follow the construction footprint. It runs east to west, straight as a surveyor's line, aimed directly at the eastern gate across the Kidron Valley below. Zechariah 14:4 says that when the Messiah's feet touch the Mount of Olives, it will split east to west. Jewish scholars have been pointing at that verse for 2,000 years. The secular explanations for this particular crack exist, but the geometry is harder to dismiss than the geology. And get this, along the fault line, olive trees are blooming. It is not flowering season, it is harvest season. These trees are producing fresh white blossoms that locals describe as smelling like frankincense. Olive trees in Jerusalem in October produce fruit, not flowers. They have done so reliably for centuries. The last time olive trees bloomed out of season in Jerusalem was 70 AD, the year the Roman legions surrounded the city and burned the temple to the ground. That year, witnesses recorded something beautiful and wrong appearing in the orchards. Then the city fell. No one who noticed the flowers then understood what they were announcing until it was already over. What comes next? Pull back and look at what has accumulated. A buried gate below the visible one. The first already fulfilled, the second still waiting. A stone countdown begun in 1244 that now stands at 887 of 889, with the pace accelerating. A heartbeat pulse detected by scientific instruments behind 5 centuries of sealed stone, strengthening week by week. 23 graves sinking in a straight line to clear a path no human ordered cleared. A crack widening across the Mount of Olives on the exact axis the prophet specified. A religious council with trained priests and a qualifying red heifer, ready for the first time in 2 millennia. None of these facts knows about the others. The seismologist didn't consult the Templars' journals. The graves didn't sink because Ahmad Rashid's grandfather wrote about it. The olive trees didn't consult Zechariah. These are independent data points converging on the same location, the same wall, the same sealed threshold. Here's what is undeniable. Every empire that tried to control the Eastern Gate was broken by the attempt. Every soldier who raised a weapon toward it stood down. Every prophecy that pointed at it has, so far, arrived exactly as written. The wall has been sealed for 480 years. The pulse behind it is stronger this week than last. The crack in the mountain across the valley is wider today than it was a month ago. And right now, 2 stones remain between the current crack count and the total Sir Geoffrey of Montfort was told would mark the final year. What do you think is behind that gate? Drop your answer in the comments. And subscribe because the follow-up to this video goes even deeper into what the archaeology, the prophecy, and the seismic data are all pointing toward. The graves are still sinking, the pulse is still climbing. And somewhere in Jerusalem right now, the final 2 stones in a countdown that started 8 centuries ago are showing the first hairline, fractures of the cracks that were always coming. The gate has never been closer to opening, and no one alive has ever seen what happens when it does.